Okay, I'm running Windows 8. I have Hyper-V Manager, and we've talked about how to install a virtual machine. And I was downloading SUSE, I guess is how it's pronounced, Unix, which is a free operating system. And it was going to take about 2 hours. So I found a smaller version of Unix out there on the internet. This is Koppix. It's another version of Unix, but as you can see, I have my virtual machine running a version of Unix, and you can see my cursors moving around on the desktop right now on the left hand side, and there's a cursor that's like frozen in this screen. And if I click inside of my virtual machine, now I can control the cursor that's inside the virtual machine. So now I can run this other operating system, which is a version of Unix, a free version of Unix inside of Windows 8 at the same time that Windows 8 is running on my computer. So I can open up a terminal, and Unix is different. You have each version of Unix has a different desktop. This is the Koppix Desktop, and you can open up folders and things like that. Or most of us hardcore Unix guys like myself likes to really just have the $ prompt. We can pretty much do anything we want from the $ prompt. So we can basically navigate through the computer by using the terminal interface. But the desktop is, kind of like Windows. But again, this is a free operating system, so it's probably more like the Macintosh, Mac OS. And Mac OS is built on top of Unix, actually. So if you have a Macintosh, it basically runs Unix, and the cool Macintosh user interface is the desktop that runs on the Apple. So hope that's not too confusing. To get the cursor out, see, I can't get the cursor out, or I can't get my cursor out. I have to hold the Control Alternate key down and then press the left arrow key. That'll get my cursor outside of the virtual machine, so I can run other things on my computer. Okay, so kind of see how a virtual machine will work. Now, if I had an ISO or a delivery version of Windows, like Windows 7 or Windows Vista or Windows XP, I could create a virtual machine and run that operating system inside of a virtual machine. So I can have multiple operating systems running on the computer at the same time if our CPU allows us to do that. And we talked about that in another version or another video. And the i3 processor has 2 cores. The i5 desktop processor has 4 cores, and the i7 desktop processor, and why I say desktop is a lot of notebooks, they turn off the other cores. So there are an awful lot of notebooks out there that are i5s, and I've actually seen an i7 that only has 2 cores, and a core is a processor. So realistically, you might want to, on the i3 we have 2 processors. Now, one of the processors is probably running this virtual machine, and the other processor is running Windows. Now, I can turn off the virtual machine, and then I'll have 2 processors running the Windows 8. It all depends on how many processors are on the computer and how you have your virtual machine configured. So if you have an i7 and you have you'll have 4 cores, and each of those cores can have hyper-threading turned on, so it appears to the computer that it's 8 cores. And actually, we can look. Actually, this does have hyper-threading, so really, in a sense, I could probably run 4 different operating systems at the same time. I'm going to my task manager, right mouse button clicking on the taskbar. Go to the task manager, go to show more details, go to performance, go to CPU. I think we double click on CPU. Let's see, maybe it's down here on the bottom. Open resource monitor, that's where it is. Now I have an i3, but I have actually we go to my CPU here, the CPU tab. Now we see a CPU 0, a CPU 1, a CPU 2, and a CPU 3. I really only have 2 cores, but I have hyper-threading turned on, which makes my computer look like it has 4 processors on it. And if you have an i5 notebook with hyper-threading turned on, you probably have 4 processors. If you have an i5 desktop, now the i5 desktop does not have hyper-threading, but it does have 4 cores. And then the i7 chip from Intel has 4 cores, but it has hyper-threading. So if you had an i7 desktop or a high-end i7 notebook, you'd actually see 8 cores in here. And each of the cores could theoretically run its own operating system. So you could have, theoretically, 8 operating systems running on the computer at the same time. I chose the Unix because the operating systems are free. But if you want to pay for your operating systems, you can pretty much run whatever you want.